Hey there, bookworms! Welcome to another What I Read This Month vlog. If you're new here, welcome! My name's Ange. I'm your very casual librarian. I'm also a master's student and a mum of two. And if you're a returning bookworm, as always, welcome home. So, as requested from my last vlog, this month I recorded all my reviews of my books almost immediately after I finished each one. So they were fresh in my mind, and I think the reviews were much better. They were certainly easier because I didn't have to remember what I'd read or go and review what I'd read. I totally could remember straight away. I was fresh. All my emotions about the book were fresh, so it was so much easier to do it that way. There was two books that I DNF'd this time. One was The Mountains Wild by Sarah Stewart Taylor. It was The Mountains Wild, and I borrowed that as an audiobook, through Libby, and I started to read it, but I wasn't really feeling it, and I got about a third of the way through and my loan period started to expire. I had like 2 days left and I was trying desperately to finish it, and then I realized I wasn't really enjoying it. So when the loan period finished, there was actually someone else in line for the loan, so I couldn't renew it, and I was like, I'm actually not that disappointed. I'm okay with not finishing that book. So I DNF'd that one. That's probably one for another time. The other one I DNF'd was a Murder, She Wrote book, a Jessica Fletcher, JB Fletcher book. I've been on a real Murder, She Wrote phase. At the moment, I'm rewatching all of the old series, and I adore Angela Lansbury. She is goals, life goals. So I started reading, I think it was Madison Avenue Shoot. I'm pretty sure it's called that. And I started to read it, listen to it on Libby, and I was like, oh, I've actually read this before. So I didn't realize until I was about a tenth of the way in that I'd already read it. So I DNF'd that one as well. But okay, so let's get a warm drink and get comfortable for this month's book reviews. And then after that, we have to talk about rivals. We have to talk about that. So get comfortable, get something to drink, get something stronger if you want, because we have to talk about rivals. So I've just finished Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. Really enjoyed it. What a powerful, moving book. I can see why it was nominated for a Booker Prize. Difficult to describe, but basically the book is about our narrator, who is a woman who has left her marriage and her life in the city to return to her hometown, and she's seeking refuge and solace in a religious community. There's a Catholic convent and a church, and she's living in a cabin on the grounds of the church in the town she grew up in. She's really exploring grief, the grief around her parents' death. While she is staying at the convent, they are also preparing for a mouse plague that is coming from northern Queensland. So there's a mouse plague heading south. So gradually there's more mice appearing, and they're having to deal with this mice problem. It's also post-COVID, and they are preparing for the return of the remains of one of the nuns who actually went missing overseas, but her remains have been discovered, and they're returning her remains to the convent for burial. It's a really interesting book about grief and the sense of overwhelm that you can feel sometimes trying to be a good person and do good in a world where there's so much brutality. So many bad things happen to good people for no reason, and how you come to terms with that. And the fact that it can be really overwhelming, you can feel totally powerless in the face of all the bad that sometimes happens in the world. I think Charlotte Wood contrasts the peacefulness and the ritual inside the convent community with the brutality and the death and the violence and things that happen happen in this small country community and environment. And it's really interesting. I think it's really well done. It really gets you thinking. You know, the fact that you can't, there's nothing you can do about the greater world, and often you are quite powerless in certain situations, but all you can really do is your small bit and the best you can at the time, and deal with one mouse at a time. You feel like there's a mouse plague coming. All you can do is deal with the situation that you have in front of you at the time and do the best you can. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It's got a real sense of melancholy. I liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I would like to read more by Charlotte Wood. I thought I would, and now having read this has confirmed it. So I've just finished reading Butter by Asako Yuzuki, and I loved it. I absolutely love this book. I don't know why it took me so long to read. It took me forever to read the thing, and I don't really know why. It was actually a really easy read. It's not that it's particularly difficult to read. I think it's just been my state of mind and my life at the moment. It's been a bit crazy. So this is a book translated from the Japanese by Polly Barton. It's based on the Konkatsu killer, the Japanese serial killer, which is a true story. And Asako Yuzuki has based her novel on that case loosely. And it's about a woman who is convicted of murdering 3 men. She's convicted of luring them to her house and killing them with her cooking, basically. Our main character, Rika, is an investigative journalist, and she is fascinated by the case and has decided to try and get an interview with Manako Kaji, who's the murderess. I think this is the sort of book that'll be really polarizing. Some people will get it and some people won't. And I think women who are feminists are more likely to get it. It's not going to be everybody's sort of book, but I really loved this. It really explores the relationship between women and food and caring and the gendered expectations that society places on women and the double standards that exist around women's bodies and food as opposed to men, and the way men are allowed to present and the way men are allowed to eat and have hunger and desires around food, whereas women are supposed to be restrained and women are supposed to be thin and to care about the way they look and to not be greedy and to care for others by cooking for them, but also to restrict themselves in terms of food. It's got some really interesting issues in it, really interesting exploration of those issues, and that's part of the reason why I think I loved it. I gave this, it's about close to a 5 out of 5, I think, as I could give it. I think I gave it a 4.8 out of 5. And the reason it doesn't get a full 5 out of 5 for me was I felt like at the end it kind of wandered off plot a little bit, and that was a bit confused. That made for a bit of confusion in the reading, but loved it. I'm keeping this book. I'm not going to give this one away. This is my book now, and I will definitely read it again. Hey Bookworms! So I just finished The Housemaid by Freida. Ooh, sorry, holding that weird. Freida McFadden, which was recommended to me by Tracy at the library, who is one of my library colleagues. She absolutely loved this book. She is a big thriller reader, and this one she could not put down, and since she read this, she's actually been on a mission to read everything that Freida McFadden has written, so she's hooked. This is apparently the first in a trilogy. I liked this. I think this book is one that could get you out of a reading slump if you're in one. It's really pacey. The chapters are quite short. The action happens quite quickly, and it's a real page turner. It's definitely the definition of a page turner. Yeah, read this really quickly comparatively. One criticism I did have of this book is that sometimes I felt like the signposting was a bit obvious. And what I mean by that is there is quite a big twist that happens in this book, and I saw it coming a mile off because I was like, oh, that better not be this. Like, Freida, this better not be the twist. And it was the twist. But then there was other twists that I didn't predict, but the major twist in this book I predicted, because it just, to me, it felt really signposted, like it was too obvious. So that's one thing, just one criticism I had. But there was other things that happened in this book that I did not predict. Like I told Tracy what I thought was going to happen and I was completely wrong. It did have lots of twists and turns. There was lots of intrigue. The characters were probably a little bit two-dimensional, if I'm honest. At least that you could understand the motivations they had for doing things. That was kind of good. But yeah, you know when you read a book that's a thriller and you're like, oh, red flag, red flag, red flag. Why are you still in this situation now? Are you just ignoring all these red flags? Like, really? You're not seeing what I'm seeing and running? Like, that's how I kind of felt reading it. But at the same time, I could still understand the motivations of the characters for staying in the situation as well. So, you know, a little from column A, a little from column B. But I did really enjoy reading this. I will read more by Freida McFadden. I think if you like B.A. Paris, you'll probably like this. Also, Riley Sager. If you like Riley Sager, I think you'd like this as well. But yeah, I gave it probably 4.5 out of 5 for The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, and I'll definitely be interested in reading the next two in the trilogy. So I just finished The Hedge Witch by Cari Thomas. This is it here. And I'm actually really surprised that this is adult fiction. It really feels like youth fiction, I think. All of the issues in it are quite teenage and it's quite short. It's only 126 pages. So it's a very short little novella. And so this is about Rowan, whose mum and she are a family of witches. And she has been sent to stay with her Aunt Winnie and her Uncle Llewellyn for the summer holidays. And her Aunt Winnie is a hedge witch and she's learning about being a hedge witch or a plant witch. And she's trying to decide what sort of witch she wants to become. It also deals with teen relationships. There's this whole love interest, will he, won't he kiss me kind of deal, and like a teen crush. And then there's like, you know, issues of identity, and it's kind of a coming of age book. And I really feel like this is a youth book. But in saying that, it's a lovely book. Like, I really enjoyed it. The world building's really nice. It's quite simple. It's not very complicated. It's sweet. It was a cute read. I gave it 3 out of 5. Nothing groundbreaking, but a nice read. So those were my books I read for October. Comment down below what you finished in October. I'm actually about halfway through another book now, and I'm nearly finished an audiobook, but I haven't finished it in time to include it in this video. So that'll be in the next vlog. Bookworms, worms, wormsters, wormettes, non-binary worm legends. We have to talk about Disney's rivals. I was emotionally unprepared for this to come up in my Instagram feed. So if you are new here, or if you don't know, Jilly Cooper is the queen, undisputed, in my opinion. She has written my favorite series ever, called The Rutcher Chronicles. I have them right here. I know exactly where they are on my shelf. The first one is Riders. The second one is Rivals, and the third is Polo. And there's other books after that, but those three are the first three, and they're my favorite. So when it came up in my Instagram that Disney Plus has just released the new television series, limited series, 8 episodes of Rivals, the blood literally drained out of my body, because my first reaction was, oh no, don't you ruin this for me, Disney. Do not ruin this for me, Disney. If you stuff this up, I'm going to be so mad, because these books they're everything. They're my favorite. They're my comfort reads. I literally take this book everywhere with me. Whenever I travel, this book, and it's a thick one, it's a commitment, and you can see how yellowed and scuffed this book is. It comes on every trip with me. It is my comfort read. And if you know Jilly Cooper's writing, it's romance, but it's not. It's like, her humor is so funny. And these books are set in a Cotswold in England region where, you know, lots of rich people live, and and there's lots of horses and lots of entitlement and keeping up with the Joneses. And these books are basically about these characters that live in this town, like this district of Rutcher in the Cotswolds. And her main character is Rupert Campbell Black. He's in every book. He is a rake. He is a ridiculously handsome man who's been a Olympic level show jumper. He then becomes an MP. He's rich, he's entitled, he's awful, but you can't help love him for some reason. I just binged it and it's 8 episodes and I kind of got a bit confused because they haven't started at the beginning. The first book is Riders. Rivals is actually the second book. So, and I kind of get why they've started there because Riders will be so expensive to make. So if it's not going to be a success for Disney, I can understand why they've started the second one because it's all set in the same country. So I had feelings of extreme trepidation. If this gets ruined, I'm going to be so angry because the books are so good and the characters are so good and Jilly is such a queen and her career has spanned decades. And mate, Disney, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. I have to say, they are so true to the book. I binged it in 2 days, the whole eight episodes. It's so good. The character of Rupert, I was a bit surprised when they introduced the actor who played Rupert because he doesn't look how Rupert is described in the books. Rupert is blonde and he's blue-eyed and the actor who plays Rupert, and the name will come to me in a second, he's dark and he's swarthy and he's dark-haired and brown-eyed, and I was like, but he absolutely nails that character. I felt it. It's a really good choice for characters. And okay, Bookworms, we have to talk about episode 5. I'm just going to talk briefly about episode 5, but no plot points, okay? Also, trigger warning for episode 5. Trigger warning for the whole series. If you're not prepared for graphic sex scenes and full frontal nudity, if you're really uncomfortable with that, this is not the series for you to watch. Like, this is sort of Bridgerton level sex scenes, if you can imagine that. So the first series of Bridgerton, if you loved the first series of Bridgerton, you are going to love this. This is like Bridgerton but set in the 80s with all the 80s music, and it has David Tennant, so how can you lose, right? Like, it's going to be great. So episode 5 has a sexual abuse scene in which a young girl gets, and I'm not going to use the real term, but gets R-worded. And it's not a super violent graphic scene, but that does happen. So if that's not something that you can watch, you might want to just skip episode 5 and not watch that if that's not for you at this time. However, what else happens in episode 5 we have to talk about, because I nearly lost my tiny mind, Bookworms. I nearly lost it. So the character that plays Lizzie is, look it up because I couldn't remember her last name, Catherine Parkinson. So she played Jen in the IT Crowd, if you can imagine her. So she is a funny lady. She plays Lizzie, who is one of the most likable, gorgeous characters in this book. Hers and Freddie's love story is so gorgeous in the books and in this as well. And Lizzie is a romance fiction writer in Rivals. And there's a scene where she is having lunch with her publisher, and the publisher is played by the other queen, Felicity Kendall. And my tiny mind was blown because they are like my favorite people. But it didn't end there, because during the scene, Lizzie is reading during the scene, the publisher is reading aloud from Lizzie's book, and it's a very spicy scene, but she's reading it loud so everyone in the restaurant can hear, and you can see people's looking, and because it's quite a raunchy scene. And they pan to 2 restaurant patrons in the background who are looking and laughing and the dark-haired woman laughs, and then a blonde-haired woman laughs. And Bookworms, it's Jilly Cooper. She has a cameo in episode 5, and I was like, true fans would know straight away, that's her. I nearly died. I screamed. Yes, my mind was blown. So obviously this series has Jilly's stamp of approval. Her brand is all over this series. I loved it. 6 out of 5. I hope they make more because they've just done this so well, and it's so true to the books. So good, Bookworms. Go and watch it. Go and read the book. Actually, read all 3 of them. Read Writers, Rivals, and Polo. They're absolutely brilliant. If you love a good laugh, a book that doesn't take itself too seriously. Jilly Cooper has always been quoted as saying, "My books aren't going to change the world. That's not the point. The point is that people will laugh and enjoy themselves. They're meant to be like a rollicking good time, these books," and they absolutely are. So if you haven't read them and you don't mind a bit of spice, because these are spicy, you can tell from the covers, they're a bit spicy, so just be aware of that. If that's not for you, these books probably aren't going to be for you. But if you love humor, if you love horses, dogs, funny characters, empowered, outspoken women, ridiculous settings, beautiful scenery, you're going to love these books. They're so fun. So I've raved about that enough now. I hope you enjoyed today's vlog. Thanks so much for watching right to the end. Please comment down below if you've seen Rivals, or tell me what you think if you've watched it. Right, I am going to go off and start editing this video so it can be out on time. I'm having dinner with my library colleagues tonight. It's my farewell dinner because I finish up at the library next week. I have 2 shifts left. I'm sad, it's exciting, it's scary. It's like all the emotions. I'm feeling all the emotions about that. And then I have a little bit of a break and I've got some adventures planned. And then I start at St Mary's Newman Academic Centre on November 19th at the University of Melbourne. So that's exciting. It's scary. I'll let you know how that's going. Thanks so much, Bookworms, for being here, and I will catch you in the next vlog.